Hello my friends, welcome back to Cafe Bagheri's kitchen. Today we're going to make another Valentine's treat for our sweethearts. A Rollet-e Khamei, which is a cream roulette. We're gonna start by making the batter for our cake, right? So I'm starting with the egg whites right now because I want to keep the mixer attachment and the bowl clean. And then we'll move on to the creaming portion with the egg yolks. This is 3 eggs. I've separated the whites and the yolks. We're going to start by processing our egg whites until they're a little frothy. They have some bubbles in them. That's what we're going for. So I'm whisking them until they're a little frothy. This is what we're looking for right here. This is the state we were looking for. I'm gonna add the 2 tablespoons of sugar and a little bit of vinegar. I'm using apple cider vinegar, regular vinegar, or any kind of acid would work. So I'm going to process the egg whites until I have soft peaks. You don't want to go too far. Okay, this here is what we're looking for. See, the peaks don't hold, they fold back over themselves. Now we go back to the other half of the egg. Cream the egg yolks and sugar and other flavoring agents in the bowl here. I am going to add my sugar to the yolks. As you can see, I did not clean the attachments because with the yolks, I don't care if I have any transfer from the whites. If I was doing it the other way around, I would have had to get a clean bowl and get a clean set of attachments or wash them. So that's why we started with the egg whites, right? So right off the bat, we see the need to push this down, just scrape it down a little bit, to make sure the sugars that were thrown around are back in the puddle in the middle. Now we're going to put the rest of the ingredients for the creaming. We have the room temperature milk. We have vegetable oil. I use grapeseed, which is pretty neutral. Do not use olive oil with this because olive has a flavor that you don't want in this dessert. We have a little bit of vanilla extract, and this is some rose water, which is the Persian touch on this roulette. If you're allergic to rose water or you don't like it, you can leave that out. You can add other things like cardamom or orange blossom or whatever. Experiment with this and see which ones you like. But vanilla would be definitely what you want in there. We do another 30 to 45 seconds of this. All right, so we got this where we want. We're going to make sure we sift it like so. This is our flour, and this is our cornstarch. As fine as cornstarch and flour are, when you store them, you're liable to end up with these little clumps that have to be pushed through the sieve. If I was to turn on this mixer right now, I would end up with a plume of dust in my face and all over this kitchen, and I don't want that. So without turning on the motor, I would do this at first. Just use the attachments the old-fashioned way to get some of this powder, especially the cornstarch. It's so fine, it's gonna fly around. So you go like this for about 20 to 30 seconds, and then you turn on the machine. There you go. Now we're gonna go about 1.5 to 2 minutes, and we're gonna scrape down the sides once, maybe twice if needed. Okay, we're basically done with our cream in here. Check this out. This is the flavor base, and this is what's going to give it the structure, right? If you've seen our pumpkin roll holiday video, this will be the pumpkin base. Experiment with that, like if you want strawberry in it or you want more vanilla in it or whatever. So we're going to add this in 2 or 3 installments into our creamed yolks and flour. And don't agitate this too much. The idea is to really fold it. We're not mixing, so to speak. We're just folding, see? And so while you turn in the bowl the opposite direction, just go under and just bring it over. The objective is for all of this to be a uniform color. See how I have yellow and white bands from the eggs? If you were to just mix it, agitate it, then you lose some structure from this cake. The final product will not rise like you want it to. I think we're ready to add the rest of this. So I guess I went with 2 installments. Just get all of it gathered up. So we continue the same technique of turning in opposite directions. Our cake batter is uniformly colored. We're gonna push everything back in there. I think we're ready to pour it into our pan. We have what is called a jelly roll pan. It's not as big as your cookie sheet. I forget the dimensions. Is it 11 by or 9 by 15? Just look for jelly roll pans. That's what they call it in North America. So what we're going to do is we're going to spray or just use vegetable oil with a silicone brush or whatever kind of brush you have and apply it all over. For me, the spray is always more convenient. Just centered. See, I go kind of do a fold here and do a fold here and do a fold over here. Make sure it stays in place. Pay attention to these corners. Then I'm going to do another light spray on the top. I can smell the rose water in this thing. I guess that's the Persian touch that we put on this thing. This is this recipe actually, the roulette, is based in Central Europe, France or Switzerland or Belgium, and it came to Iran sometime around like in 1940s or 1950s with either through the foreign diplomats, European diplomats, or the first wave of Iranians who went to Europe to go to school, and when they came back, they brought all the sweets like the cream puff and the roulette that they loved, and it just became popular, and they put some of their own touches on it, including the rose water, right? So here I have this trusty offset spatula that I'm going to use. I'm going to make sure it's completely flat and even surface. You drop it a couple of times from a couple of inches high. Did you see how the bubbles disappeared? And then shake it both ways this way. Now we're going to go to the preheated 375 Fahrenheit oven that we have ready. You need this in the 375 oven somewhere between 14 to 16 minutes, depending on your oven. In this oven, it's going to be 15 minutes. Okay, it's right at 15 minutes, and it looks ready to me. But here's how you test. Don't burn yourself, but barely touch the surface. If you get some batter on your hand and it sticks to your hands, your cake is not ready. Right now, we have a little bit of color changing and a skin on it, so that tells me the cake is ready. So we're done here. Now we're going to give this about 5 minutes to cool down a little bit before we go to the next section. While we have time here, let me tell you that we did not have a Valentine's video last year, but a couple of years ago, I had a video for Valentine's, and we had chickpea cookies and a special cocktail that we featured called Valentina. Please go ahead and check that video and let me know how you like that one, okay? The cake has cooled down a little bit, so we're going to sprinkle the top of it with some confectioner's sugar, not too heavily, but just a moderate cover, because we're going to be wrapping this in a cloth and we don't want it to stick to the cloth. So now we're going to get a kitchen towel that's almost the same size as our cake and our pan. You want something with as little texture as possible because you don't want it to leave any kind of marking on your cake. There you go. Gonna stretch that. And then you get another cookie sheet. I like this one because it doesn't have sides. But if you have one with sides, that would work too, as long as it's bigger than your first pan, right? So you go like this. Make sure you hold firmly. Then go like this. This is what we were looking for. We're going to lift the original pan and put it away. Then we're going to separate and remove the parchment paper. By now it's kind of cool and easy to remove. So now we're going to kind of fold this over and go. This is going to be the inside of your rolls. The reason we're doing this because we want the cake to dry with a curve in it, so that when we open it up to put the cream on it, it's not going to crack. It already has that shape, right? It's still warm to touch, so I'm going to leave it aside and let it cool somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour, right? Completely cool before you put the cream on it. We're gonna start our cream. I am using a large bowl with tall sides because when you're, at least initially, when you're whipping and processing your cream, it's liable to splatter around. You want it to get on your clothes or around your kitchen. So you need a bowl that has at least 4 to 6 inches of height on the sides. This is heavy whipping cream that I've got. It's a cup and a quarter right there. The cream recipe is a simple one. You just basically process it and introduce air bubbles into it and builds a body and firms up, and you go until you have hard peaks. Except you need a touch of sweet. Neither the cake nor the cream has a lot of sugar. It's a very light dessert, and that's one of the reasons people love it, because as rich as it is, it's not very sweet and overpowering. So we have a little bit of powdered sugar, and you don't need to sift this at this point. Just add that in there. We have a little bit of vanilla extract, and we have the Persian touch, which is a little bit of rose water. And as I said before when we were making the cake, if you don't like or if you're allergic to rose water, you can skip that, but that's really the Persian character in this dessert. But there's one touch that I add to it. This product's called Whip It by Dr. Outtro. And no, they're not paying me any promotional considerations, but maybe they should. What I like about this thing is it actually stabilizes the air bubbles that I introduce into the heavy whipped cream so that it will last longer and it won't collapse on itself. So it's a stabilizing factor. If you can find it, I recommend it, but you don't have to. look for it online. So remember, we're going for hard peaks. Notice, see how far up the side of the bowl these drips came. If you didn't have a tall bowl like this, all of this will be on your clothing and on your kitchen. Okay. We're going to scrape down once. We're back from our cooling period for this cake. It's been sitting a little less than an hour, and I think we're ready to move to the final phase of this roulette. See, this part is going to be the inner piece. There's a little bit of cutting that we have to do for the ends so that when you look at the cross section, it's kind of prettier. I'm going to take just a little bit out of this side. Now, this is a different story. You see how this broke here? When I baked the cake, this part, see, it's kind of hard, and this part was a little too thin, and it cooked too much. So what I can do is I can make adjustments at this time. Right there. That's not going to take anything away from my cake, but I can make corrections. So I'm going to remove the cloth at this point. I think we're good here. Before we start working with this, we'll put some plastic sheeting down, just like so. Just bring it back a little bit and cut this over here, put that away. This is our whipped cream that we had done, and it was in the fridge waiting for us. So this is going to be the curlier part, which is going to end up being the inside of our roll. In there. I'm using my offset spatula again. So do a consistent spread of this. You notice I'm leaving about 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch of space without cream on the sides, on the two longer sides, and at the end here. So this is all going to get pushed out as you roll it over here. So we got all the cream that we want to get on there. So I'm going to kind of pinch this side, because this is going to be the inside of my roll. See, I'm going to have a little sharper turn here, and then gonna go like that. You don't need to put a lot of pressure, but make sure that the cream gets pushed across like this. You want to get some of this extra cream from the bowl, and make sure you have a pretty coverage on the side here. You see what's going on here? This is what we were going for. Now we're going to roll this back over itself. You see what we did here? This is the first wrap. I would like to do another the opposite way so that it's airtight. See, the sides are open right now. I'll go back over this like that. Seal this end and just kind of do this. One thing that happens to this roll, because the cream inside is moist, it's going to give some of that moisture to the cake, and if you have some parts that are harder or drier, it's all going to settle and it's going to absorb some of that moisture out of the cream. We're gonna put this in the fridge anywhere from 2 hours to 2 days. Okay, after a couple of hours, the roulette is out of the refrigerator, and we're gonna uncover it from the saran. There's several ways to do this. You can use a serrated knife, or you can use a chef's knife, and keep the blade wet and wiped after each use. So this is the sacrificial end. Look at that. This is what we're going for, right? And you can do one of two things. If you want to take this to the table and serve it, cut it on the table, what you can do is just lift it like that, put it in a plate like so, a presentation plate like so. At this point, right before you serve this thing, possibilities are endless. You could cover this with more of that icing, more of that cream that's inside, and then sprinkle it with some crushed walnuts or pistachios to make it more of a Persian touch. You could drizzle chocolate back and forth in any patterns you like. You could put a berry sauce or pieces of bananas and icing on there. I've seen them many different ways decorated. What you can do right before you serve it, again, because any powdered sugar you put on this thing, it's gonna get absorbed right away. You do one of these. Look, again, inside of a few minutes, this powdered sugar is gonna disappear because that moist top is gonna absorb it. So let's say you take this to the table and you wanna slice it at the table. I would say that a small but sharp knife to go like this. Look at that. That's what you're dealing with. So we're going to serve one piece like so. What you could do at this point, you could sprinkle more powdered sugar. What I personally like to do with my creme roulette is I like to put a few pistachio nuts with salt, salted roasted pistachio nuts. And I would take one of these with each bite of creme roulette. Try that. In fact, some versions of this crunch up the pistachio nuts and put it in the cream inside. I hope you liked what you saw today. If you did, please like this video, share with your friends and family. Do go ahead and make this roulette and send me pictures on my Instagram account at Cafe Bagheri. I'll give you a shout out. I'll tag you and post it for you. Please send me your pictures. And I know this is going to become your usual go-to at your parties. It's a favorite of ours, and I love it a lot. Thanks for being with me here today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel. Please hit that little bell button so you can get a notification whenever I put up a video or a post or something. And happy Valentine's Day. Please love one another. Be kind to each other. Doesn't have to be romantic love. People that care for you and take care of you, love them back and tell them happy Valentine's Day, will you? Go see my video from a couple of years ago for Valentine's Day. There is a good dessert there as well and a nice cocktail for you. Come back and see me very soon right here at Cafe Bagheri.